Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. I'm here at the November 2019 Metal Investors Forum. I'm here with Tim Moody, the CEO of Pan Global Resources. Pan Global has a couple of large projects in Spain. We're going to talk mainly about one today called Escacena, because Tim recently announced what I just consider a discovery hole. Do you recall what that drill hole looked like?
Yeah, it's 20.55 metres at about 1.5% copper equivalent. The copper grade's about 1%, 0.23% tin, but within that there's a 7 metre interval of about 3.4% copper equivalent with grades of 2.5 copper.
And it was quite shallow too,
yeah,
right? That wasn't like halfway to the center of the earth. It basically started a few meters from surface.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the extraordinary thing, to be in a mature province, to be able to have found those sort of grades of those widths at so near to surface is it's pretty rare anywhere, but to do that in a place like the Pyrite Belts.
Well, and it's in the Iberian Pyrite Belt. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Iberian Pyrite Belt is, I guess, the land of the giants, I would call it, for VMS, which is volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits. And to give you probably the best name type example of a giant deposit there is, in fact, the Rio Tinto deposit. If you've ever heard of RTZ, RTZ, the first two letters of that stand for Rio Tinto. And that deposit in Spain it's actually not that far from Escacena, is it?
No, it's about 20 kilometres to the northwest.
And the thing about this area is it's got, some of you may be familiar with this deposit type. I mean, there's a lot of them in North America, there's a lot in Canada. There's some pretty major mines that are VMS that people probably don't even realize are that deposit type. But they're fairly well understood, and one of the things that's interesting about the Pyrite Belt is scale. There's a lot of big VMS deposits there, and that's part of what struck me, and I could see why you were so excited when you picked this project up, because when you look at the two gravity anomalies that you're working on now gravity is kind of it's sort of been the discovery tool, I guess, in that part of the world, really?
Yeah, it's, I've told you about these before, that most of the big discoveries have been, in the last 20 or 30 years, have been found by directly drilling gravity anomalies. There's been a couple of exceptions, but there's been two big discoveries right near the Escacena project that were found exactly by drilling gravity anomalies. Las Cruces, 12 kilometres to the east, the Los Frailes mine, less than 3 kilometres to the east of our property, that was found by Boliden drilling a gravity anomaly as well. So,
and it's important to note that the two gravity anomalies you got at Escacena, one of which, the La Romana, is where that discovery hole came from, but La Romana and Canada Honda, those two anomalies are essentially identical, but essentially untested to these anomalies down the way that later became mines.
Yeah. No, it's both of them about 1.5 kilometres long, half a kilometre wide. You can put them next door to the 90 million tonne ore body at Asnoquia, in terms of comparing to gravity anomalies. So no, they're big anomalies, good size, and that was the attraction. So we've shown there's mineralisation.
Well, and this program that you just did, where you had this discovery hole, I mean, I remember you describing it to me before you did it. It was intentionally a very small program. You had some very specific, I mean, obviously you're hoping to hit something, as it turns out you did, but you had some fairly specific objectives with this small program. Why did you do the three essentially short holes the way you did? What was the...
Well, they were valid geophysical targets anyway.
Right.
We did a step back a little bit. The ground was granted in December last year. We started work in February. We were drilling in July.
Right.
So it's pretty quick. We did a couple of lines of IP on one target and one line on the La Romana anomaly target. So we wanted to test where we had shallow IP anomalies, chargeability anomalies in both targets, and we decided, well, let's just drill shallow holes now. They're valid targets anyway, but it'll give us valuable information on the geology and also what's the geophysics telling us. And then we can also use that information to better model the gravity anomalies when we go and step back and drill bigger holes. So fortunately, one of those hit some really good looking stuff at Laramana.
Well, and the other thing too, when you did this drill program, once you had those 3 holes in, you use those holes to do downhole geophysics.
Yeah.
And that's also turned out some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, again, downhole EM is a very common tool in VMS environments. In fact, it's a tool that's been used effectively in a number of projects, and most recently in Spain, perhaps 5 years ago, the Trafigura Mubadala joint venture at the Aguas Tenidas, or just near Aguas Tenidas mine. They found a massive sulfide ore body using VTEM, and then drilled that, and then did downhole EM, had an off-hole conductor, drilled that, and found a second ore body.
Right.
So it looks just like that, except our targets are a bit shallower.
Yeah, and you can find this stuff in Pan Global's presentation or on their website, but essentially that high-grade intercept that you noted at the start of the interview, that's basically right on the edge of a really nice-looking EM conductor that came out of this survey.
Yeah.
And then you've got another one that's deeper than where you drilled on the other. So I mean, you've got a lot of target here, and I think VMS they're pretty heavily studied deposit type. The way they respond to things, depending on where you are in the system, and it's fairly well understood. It's one of the things I like about this project is based on what you hit already, based on this geophysics, to me this seems to be a very high probability drill program. I mean, your follow-up drill program, I'd be pretty shocked if you don't hit on a few of the holes, because it's just, anybody that's looked at a VMS target, I mean, it doesn't get any, it's literally a textbook target. I mean, it doesn't get any more obvious than that. And then more recently, I mean, I think you've been doing some follow-up geophysics to generate more targets and tighten them up some more. But you also picked up some more ground just like a week ago or so. Right?
Yeah. So just last week we announced an acquisition of the property adjoining us, and it's added another 3,000 plus hectares to our position. So we've now got nearly 6,000 hectares of what I consider an extraordinary piece of exploration property. That's basically been left unexplored for 30 years. Since Exxon were there back in the mid-1980s, and to find an area that's really been untouched in such a fertile area for ore deposits in a mature province like the Iberian Pirate Belt is pretty rare, pretty exceptional. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, it's kind of I guess it was just the previous owner just kind of sat on it. I guess they just basically didn't do any work.
Well, it's the ownership history. It went from when Exxon were dabbling in mining. They were still a big company. They hit some mineralisation, did some great work, but which we're benefiting from some of that now. When we acquired a lot of that information covering a sort of fairly big area there. But I guess lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, there's the ownership history just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, that's right. So then it went from Boliden, Exxon left, Boliden came in, and they were to develop Asno-Kuyar and expand that. And soon after, they found the Los Frailes deposit right next door by drilling a gravity anomaly. And then they set about developing that deposit, then started to do exploration, had a tailings dam failure, and basically they stopped all their exploration. So the ground was locked up for several years. It's still in the hands of Boliden, but they basically finished there. And then they left, and the ground was picked up by speculators and others, and it's basically been sitting there untouched as mineral rights applications for all this time. So,
and this new ground, I mean, you're just having given it a quick, once over, you're pretty confident there's actually several more targets on that one to go along with the ones you already have at Escacena. Yeah,
well, we've got the potential extensions of the Laramana target to the east into that property. There was an old mesolar mass survey that Exxon did in one of their old holes and showing the conductor going into that property. So that's an obvious target. Looks to be several gravity anomalies that have not been tested. There was a couple of holes that they did in a prospect called La Jarosa, which included a hole had 9.5 metres at 1.5% copper, or just nearly that. No further work, lost in the archives at time, and we've uncovered it. And then there's some old mining areas. One of them, called Sarcita, in the north, is a 2 kilometre long alteration zone with old mine workings all along it. There's been no work on that. So
it's a really impressive project. And I mean, back in the day, 15 years ago, HRA followed a company called Eurozinc when they acquired and subsequently sort of built out, proved up, if you will, Neves Corvo on the Portuguese side of the belt. And that was a very big deal. It was a $1.5 billion takeover. I think from that point forward for the last 15 years, that's part of the reason why you couldn't get ground, because I think everybody and their dog stake stuff all through that belt. And it's just, there's only a couple of spots that come open now, and you've got them. I mean, I think this is a great set of targets. I'm really looking forward to the next drill phase, since you've already hit some really nice stuff, and you've hit it on the edge of some really nice looking anomalies, and those kind of anomalies, they tend to generate intersections with this deposit type. So I think Pan Global is a great story. PGZ on the venture, you definitely want this one on your radar, and be paying attention when Tim pulls the drill back to Escasena. Thanks very much.